3 meetings. And now it's. Oh.
We're good?
Yep.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let's stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You want to read the land acknowledgements, Donna?
Sure. As a way of respecting, honoring, and creating awareness about our past, we begin our village board meetings by acknowledging that New Paltz is on the ancestral land of the Munsee, Esopus, and Lenape people. Please join us in finding ways to support Indigenous communities, and we have some suggested links on our agenda.
Okay, updates to this agenda. Nothing to change on the consent agenda. So I motion that we move the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Business agenda, item number 2. This is related to the grant we were recently
Mhm.
awarded.
We're not doing
What?
public. No, there's nobody here for public comment. I
I'm
just saw.
amending the agenda.
I see.
I'm just adding the stuff.
I
that-
thought you were
No
going
problem.
on. Was it on the business agenda? I thought.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So on the business agenda, we're adding item number 2 about the sewer grant, and we are adding number 10, a discussion about parking on Plattekill Avenue, and we're adding item 11 regarding local law for code enforcement. Motion to accept the business agenda as amended. All in favor?
Aye.
Announcements. So we've been trying to do more broad updates for the community. So there are ZBA hearings that are opening, that are already open. Are these both still open? Is that,
Sorry, these 2 open at the next meeting.
so the date is just
Oh, I remember. The 13th. December 13th.
12/13, okay. So at the 12/13 ZBA meeting, there will be a public hearing regarding 64 Plains Road and 137 North Chestnut Street. And another announcement has to do with the Design Review Board, Historic Preservation Commission. They will hold a special meeting on December 19th at 7 p.m. here at Village Hall. And for the community, there will be a holiday hoopla, which is happening in Hasbrook Park. I believe it begins with a parade leaving the middle school parking lot at noon, and it will continue until 3 p.m. Our Ulster County Legislator Eve Walter normally checks in with us. She's not here tonight, so we'll hear from her next time. Another announcement, we're super excited that the Ann Oliver House and the project that Essie Lewis has been working on got a very encouraging phone call this morning. Kevin Cahill's office is looking to secure $200,000 of capital grant to help with the restoration of the Ann Oliver House. And this augments the $61,000 that Senator Hinchy announced on November 5th when we gathered at the Dorsky Museum at SUNY New Paltz. Then later on in our business agenda, we have another item related to this project for a grant that we're going to be chasing down. That's for the Restore New York program. Another announcement has to do with Mannheim Muse. Many in our community have been following this proposed project. This is a senior affordable housing complex across 32 South from SUNY New Paltz, and the project will involve a municipal pilot that would help make the project affordable. And another piece to this project involves the developer applying for grant support from the Division of Housing and Community Renewal. So they shared with us that that application was submitted on the 6th. So now we'll keep our fingers crossed that they receive favorable news from the grantors. And I know Stana had an announcement that you wanted to make.
Yeah, so there is currently legislation in the New York State Legislature in regards to reproductive justice, to help with access to those in other states who have trouble obtaining abortions. A wonderful local doctor that I know is working to help pass this legislation and has asked that we all send letters if we can. So I'm going to add a link to our agenda and minutes that everybody can click on so they can easily send a letter asking the governor and the legislature to please pass this bill. And the bill specifically shields medical professionals from prosecution for sending abortion medication to other states, which they would use along with telemedicine visits to help people who needed to end pregnancy.
So is the thinking that we should do a memorializing resolution proclaiming that we support
Yes,
this
please.
legislation?
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
So does it work
Do we need
if
to-
we put it on the 12/21?
Yeah, that would, it would be better if we can't do it tonight because it wasn't on the agenda. I didn't think of
We can,
doing
we
the.
can just motion as a board that we support this resolution, or we
Okay.
support
I
this
would like
proposed
to-
legislation.
I would like to move that we support this legislation as a board.
Thanks for bringing this to our attention. All in favor?
Aye.
Any other announcements, Bill or Stana?
At the moment.
Or Michelle? Michelle is joining us as a board member from via Zoom.
Nothing from me, sorry. Thanks.
Moving on to our business agenda. Does anyone want to summarize anything related to climate equity and social justice?
I think we did that.
Or we can just move right in.
We did that.
So business item number 2. So we received encouraging news a couple of weeks ago. We were awarded a sewer grant for $867,450 towards a $914,450,000 project, which will involve updated sewer conveyance on Prospect Street, South Chestnut, and Harrington. So what we have now is an agreement that I'm going to ask our board to support me signing so that we can move forward with that project. And then simultaneously, we have a contract proposal from Mark Blauer to be our administrator for this project, as Mark has done many times. And we want to thank Mark for being so successful. I think it's really interesting to note that when you look at the Mid-Hudson region, there were 3 awards granted: Town of Ulster, Town of Wawarsing, Village of New Paltz. All of them were proposals that were written by grant writer Mark Blauer.
Grateful for him.
He knows how to navigate that application process. So does someone want to second my motion to sign both of those items? All in favor? Aye. The next item on this business agenda, Bill's been working on this for some time, and Fire Chief Corey Worthman has been working on this, and myself. But Ted Nitza has provided us with a draft agreement that would involve Walden Engineering creating an RFP that we would share publicly, because we would want as many installers of solar to respond with proposals to put a solar array on our new fire station. And the way this agreement would work is that we would not be paying Walden upfront. Their compensation would be taken care of via the proposal from the installer. So We have a really solid draft. We've actually had it for a little while. We have it in front of our attorney, and our anticipation is that we enter into this agreement with Walden Engineering, and then they compose an RFP that we share publicly, and we're really hoping that we get several, particularly local installers, interested in responding and coming up with a really good plan to get a solar array on our new fire station roof. So that's just an update. No action is required. Next item, streetlights. So at our November 16th meeting, we were discussing the light at 74 Huguenot Street, and basically we had a quote how much it would cost if you had I think it's like a 30-something watt streetlight, and we were to upgrade it to 72 watts, and that cost was $584.92. But we actually need to do is add a completely new streetlight, including armature at that pole. So we got an updated price of $1,432.61. So what I'm gonna,
What was it that we needed the whole pole replaced?
oh, we're not replacing the pole. There's just no arm.
Okay.
So we need an arm and then a fixture.
Got it.
So what we did previously is we got a price as if there was a less bright fixture, and that would be the cost to make it a 72 watt fixture.
Mhm.
So this is about adding the arm, and we may in the future see how much illumination we get from this new street light. We might want to update some of the other fixtures on Huguenot Street, especially because, you know, we like the idea of having the night programming down there. But let's see how much illumination we get just by adding the street light. And then if we need to add other fixtures, then we can consider that in the future, now that we have that price as well. So I motion that we rescind the previous approval and consider spending this updated amount for a new light and arm.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we had, in the announcement section, we talked about the Ann Oliver House and the promise of a Dr. Margaret Wade Lewis Black History Cultural Center. We're very excited that S.A. Lewis has been driving that project forward, and it seems like we're gaining some traction, getting some support from Senator Hinchey, and this morning support from Assembly Member Cahill. So the other thing that we're looking to do, and we submitted a letter of intent on the due date last Wednesday. We had a special meeting the Monday before, and we submitted a letter of intent letting the Mid-Hudson Regional Economic Development Council know that we would be seeking financial assistance for the restoration of the Ann Oliver House at 5 Broadhead. So we're looking at the application. Autumn Seguin and S.E. Lewis and myself all met yesterday. We looked at what we need to include in that application. One of the things that we need to do is to schedule a public hearing to get community input on our proposed application. So I motion that we schedule a public hearing at our upcoming meeting on 12/21. At that meeting, we will also have a presentation from S.E. Lewis.
A second.
Did I cover everything, Autumn?
Mhm.
All in favor? Aye. The next item on our business agenda is we included the RFP that we used going on 5 years ago when New Paltz selected County Waste as our municipal hauler. And that contract will expire in the middle of next year. So before we put a new RFP out publicly, we should probably use that as the starting point. But based on what we have learned as a village board and a town board and a community, there's probably an opportunity to update that RFP. So I just wanted to get that ball rolling. We communicated with the town board about the need to do this. I believe, did they put it on their upcoming agenda or recent agenda?
I don't know what's on their agenda, but they said.
But it's 100% on their radar screen, just as it is now on our radar screen. We should probably communicate with the public and ask for their input. I feel like plenty of people are appreciative and supportive of the fact that we have just one fleet of trucks driving through our community as opposed to several. But it's not always smooth sailing. Some folks don't love the fact that they cannot select and negotiate directly with their own hauler. But I think there continues to be valuable net benefits to having just a single hauler who manages solid waste pickup and recycling in our community. So let's all take a look at that RFP and mark it up in terms of how we think it might be improved. Item number 7 is there's a group called Up for Growth. I recently attended a session where a speaker from Up for Growth made a presentation, and basically it's a national organization that's focused on housing affordability. I had a subsequent conversation with their staff and the gentleman who spoke at that meeting, and basically what they're looking for is a cross section of municipalities, large and small, to be part of their network, so that we can brainstorm and try to address housing needs broadly and locally. Seems like a really interesting group to be a part of. There is a membership fee. I explained to them that I felt we are interested in the topic, but as we regularly bring up, we don't have the resources that counties or cities have. And they responded back. They felt that a lot of the work that we've already done on this topic is noteworthy, and they wanted to extend an invitation for us to apply for membership where that fee would be waived for 1 year. So I'm asking our village board to support our application for membership with a waived fee. So Donna seconded it, open for discussion.
Yeah.
Bill.
Is this a national organization, local? Regional?
National.
National.
They have members all over the place, and Ulster County, I believe, is a member, and the city of Kingston
Oh,
is also a member.
mhm.
But they presented at a RUPCO event recently.
Good. Yeah.
Any help that we can get in figuring out more affordable housing, I'm in.
Yeah, I think a function of a group like this is to lobby the state legislature, for instance, and figure out, what things we can do. But, I think they were generally impressed with, our track record of updating zoning, having a ADU law, having a short-term rental law, having an affordable housing law. Like we've been walking the talk for some time, and if Alex wasn't excused for tonight's meeting, she could highlight the fact that we already have that first designation in terms of the county initiative for communities to do this. So, okay, so all in favor of seeking membership?
Aye.
Aye. And then the next item is the Walkill Valley Rail Trail Connection Design Services. This is a revised scope from Alta Planning. So this is separate from the Henry W. Bike Ped Path, but the idea is that it will integrate with the Bike Ped Path. And the thinking is we would like a connection from that intersection at Henry W. and North Chestnut across the CERTA-owned property to the rail trail. So the CERTAs have already provided the village with an easement, and the Hudson River Valley Greenway provided us with funding to design and construct that path. So this is, Alta had done some initial work on this project. So this is just an update to reflect the fact that we've gotten some feedback in terms of some design tweaks. So it's really just an updated scope of services that we will be reimbursed from, because the Greenway folks have provided us with that financial support. So my motion is to go ahead and enter into that revised agreement. Okay, go ahead, Bill.
This is just for people to be able to cross the street.
To cross the property, to cross the CERTA property.
Across the street and the property?
Well, it really has nothing to do with the street, right? That's DOT purview. So this is really just the path from the street to the rail trail.
Yeah.
And then there's like a little drainage swale.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen it.
and at a recent meeting, we actually agreed as a board to graciously receive an extension.
Mhm.
So Hudson River Valley Greenway provided us with X number of dollars. I think it was like $135,000 to get this done. And that was through the end of this year. While we wait for DOT approvals, we're not quite ready to construct. So we worked with Hudson River Valley Greenway. They provided us generously with an extension so that we can do this. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Next item. So Joey Granary, this is funny because I met with Joey today in the village of New Paltz, and now he's in the tropics.
I jumped on the plane and had a Zoom from the beach. Sorry, Tim.
That's amazing. So Joey, his role in our DPW, and Autumn and I were chatting about this earlier. What's interesting about our Public Works Department is that our staff are generalists, so they have to know a lot about a lot of things: water, sewer, trucks, snow plowing, paving. What else am I missing, Joey?
All the parks,
Park
street-
maintenance,
street sweeping, parking meters,
right? Parking
sign
meters, yeah,
inventory.
right.
Yeah,
So we do not have departments within our DPW. But we do have is Joey is kind of the person who does a fantastic job of keeping track of all of our heavy equipment. And this is something that we've worked on for several years now. We keep an updated list of all of our heavy equipment. I think we have about 25 large pieces of equipment, and we have a replacement plan. And over the last several years, we've taken old trucks out of our fleet, trucks that are well north of 20 years old and polluting trucks, and then have updated those trucks with more energy efficient trucks and other heavy pieces of equipment. So what we have tonight on our agenda is a request to enter into an agreement with Tracy Road Equipment to purchase a new Western Star plow salt truck. And then it includes with some options to change the body depending on what type of work our department is doing. But we thought it would be interesting to share with the board and the public. We have the old truck that we hope to replace in the garage bay. That's one advantage of this new setup where we're next to a garage. So we can go in the garage now, and if our cell service doesn't fail, we can show the public the condition of this truck. And I'd also like to highlight, because this is one of the things that I was really impressed with in terms of our DPW several years ago. So the company that makes sure that we're valuing our heavy equipment correctly, because they provide us with insurance, years ago, they explained to me how our fleet was in very good shape considering its age. And I think that that's truly a testament to our staff who goes above and beyond to take care of our equipment because it's owned by the taxpayers. And they squeeze every inch of life out of this large equipment. If we could wave a magic wand, we would replace more equipment more aggressively, but we try to straddle that line between squeezing life out of equipment and making sure that we have updated trucks, so we're not also like putting staff in harm's way or wasting time on overtime where staff are putting band-aids on trucks to get basic tasks done. So Joey, I want to see if you want to add anything about what I just described.
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably ever since you've been elected, we've come up with a plan and we've pretty much been, actively pursuing that when we can. And it's definitely helped out. I mean, I remember one year where, Heather told me that she was asked how come most of my time was in central garage. And I can recall from back then, I was working on stuff just about every single day to try to get us through. And with some of the newer heavy trucks and equipment, it's definitely, allowed me to do more things than just be in the shop all day trying to work on things. And also with replacing stuff, the problem we're running into, especially with the truck that's out in the bay, is we can't find parts for it. It's getting harder and harder to find parts for the truck, which, turns, me hours and days trying to locate parts. And then they say, yeah, there's nothing available. So it's not only just because we want new, it's because we're getting to the point with some things that are just too old. Manufacturers after that, like they don't make that truck out in the shop anymore, that brand, that model. So after, I think it's 10 years, these manufacturers aren't obligated to make parts for them. So it's just, it makes it hard for us. I mean, it makes it hard. I mean, these trucks wind up breaking down when we need them the most, middle of a snowstorm, water main break, it's, we're emergency services. When we need them, we need them. So, I mean, me and Tim have definitely, we tried for the diesel grants. We were talking earlier today about how, unfortunately, because of the size of our village, we don't meet the criteria that a lot of these bigger cities meet. So it's like we tried 2 times and it doesn't make sense to try for it again because it costs money to do it. And if we're not going to get it, but we have something else. I don't know if Tim wants to talk about it yet or wait. We're something else we're going to try and see if we can maybe get somewheres with.
Just in terms of pitching our representatives in Albany on the idea that the trucks that we've had success replacing, I think we're truly moving the needle in terms of being a greener community, right? Like the big old large trucks are polluters, and when we move to the more energy efficient, even though they continue to be diesel, because there are no electric trucks available, no cyber trucks that can plow snow just yet.
And the newer diesels are supposed to be, low to zero emissions with everything that they have on it. They're definitely cleaner. Problem with the electric stuff right now is it might be there someday. It's just not there yet. And the cost of it doesn't outweigh the benefits of it. And then the run times, like I said, we're emergency. If we need that piece of equipment, we can't wait for it to charge, and that's where some of these newer stuff, equipment wise, that's coming out, their run times are very low and their charge times are really high. Not to mention the price is double to triple the price of what the diesel counterpart is.
So, as we've done in the past, we just want to share publicly our ranked list of 20 odd pieces of equipment in terms of what we've replaced, our wish list, like our prioritized wish list in terms of what we would replace next, and make the case that, go ahead.
And that changes, could change month to month, year to year. One piece of equipment could be, we need this one now, but then something else could be in worse shape that we need it more. And, that list always gets changed, year to year.
Right. And I guess an interesting fact is that our street sweeper was high up on our list to get replaced. And then fortunately or unfortunately, it was actually rear-ended recently where some damage was caused to it, and fortunately was not totaled, but that it actually allowed us to update that piece of equipment. So we can probably squeeze more life out of it because of the improvements that were made as a result of the repairs that were needed. So that went from, probably number 1 or number 2 on our prioritized list, like down to number 5 or number 6. And then I think another interesting point to highlight is, our focus on having as green a fleet as possible. One of the things that we did, and, I don't remember because COVID has all the timelines mixed up, whether it was last year or 2 or 3 years ago, but we had you take this truck that we're going to go look at in the bay to a firm that specializes in assessing its emissions. And we wanted to get a sense of like what type of polluter it is. And it was very, we learned it was very interesting that even though it is probably a pretty unattractive piece of equipment in terms of its emissions, it's still considered okay to continue to use because the standards that it gets compared against are from the 1990s, because of the vintage of the truck. Whereas, there's no way in the world if you had a newer truck, would this truck be considered reasonable as far as its emissions.
Yeah, for the year, it's still performing within its parameters for that year is what they told me. I think
So we're just gonna
I think it was I want to say it was last year because we tried last year to put this truck in the budget for this year and we were told to hold off. So I think I did it last year, probably around March or April, probably.
Yeah. I can still picture the report that you shared with me from that firm where they showed us that it was, it was emitting this amount of particles, but that was still considered okay within the range. Yeah, it passed its inspection. All right, so let's experiment with going into the garage. We'll see if the Wi-Fi signal holds up, just to share with the public, which truck we're talking about and to show the board the condition of this large truck. And just to highlight, so we would be replacing this truck with a new vehicle for the price of $298,000. So the truck that we're going to look at in the bay is from 1998.
Yeah, and also the new truck that we're getting, the reason that the price tag is a little bit higher is because this is going to be a multi-function truck. It's going to have, between 5 and 6 different bodies that we're going to get with it from the beginning, but the possibilities are endless. And the reason we're going this route is because at any given time, like Tim says, we've put on a different hat. We can go from salting the roads tonight to putting a chip box on within 5 minutes to, because there's down trees, or if we have we have to dig, we could put the dump truck body on it. It just, a lot of other towns are going to those, at least having 1 or 2 of those style trucks. So you can have a multi-use truck and not have 7 different trucks and they sit.
That's awesome.
All right, let's go see if we can take a look.
Oh, we've got no audio.
Any questions? I think that's the hope, right? I mean, we can ask that question to Jody, but what's its anticipated life?
I've got we can't see them, but this is the speaker.
Joey, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yep.
So how much longer do you think a truck in this condition will last?
It's hard to tell. I mean, we get a big snowstorm, who knows what will fail on it. I mean, we haven't had a test run yet with any of the trucks. I mean, normally the first time out, you know, we always experience some sort of breakdown. To be honest with you, you know, probably sometime next week, that truck's got to go to get inspected, and who knows what they're gonna find that we need to, you know, work on and get fixed. You know, the plan is what, you know, if we get approved for this new truck, that we just put in enough to get us by, you know, to pass the safety inspection and, you know, hopefully get us through this winter. And unfortunately, the way the market is right now, it might have to get us through next winter too, because of the time frame that they're anticipating right now.
All right, well, I think that concludes the show and tell portion of our meeting.
I mean,
This
if
is
any
super-
other board member wants, you know, during the day or something, wants me to go over with it a little bit better, I'm more than happy to show them and kind of explain. I mean, it's hard to really explain without, I wish I could have been there tonight to actually, you know, go through, but, you know, I'm more than welcome to, you know, explain in greater detail if anybody
We
needs
really
to.
appreciate all of your hard work, Joey. We really do.
Thank you. I appreciate hearing it. We put a lot of pride and effort into everything that we do on a daily basis, and
And it shows.
you could see how clean my new excavator that Tim got me and trailer are sitting behind it.
Oh, yeah, that's around the corner from the truck inside the bay, but, right, you could eat off of the new trailer that we purchased early in 2022. And the other, I think, interesting thing too, is like whenever we do a job that is made easier or more affordable, you know, I really appreciate how our staff is like, we did that extra work because we own this piece of equipment, as opposed to, you know, if we did not own this piece of equipment. So we're regularly looking to make sure that we're getting the most out of this heavy equipment, and that it's for taxpayer benefit.
Yeah,
All right,
definitely.
thanks, Joe.
Definitely
Go ahead.
getting the excavator this past year. We've done a lot of projects throughout the spring and summer and fall that if we didn't have it, you know, some of it would have had to been farmed out, some of it would have never got done. But just having the flexibility of having that machine has, you know, changed the way we've done things this year, and it's really, really helped out.
Yeah.
Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
No problem. Have a good night, everybody.
I'm gonna end our Zoom call here. And we can just continue with the rest of our meeting. So we're okay?
Are we gonna do it
Oh, good idea. That, nice catch. Motion, wait, what's the phraseology that you prefer?
Well, no, it's just the proper. You
The
move
proper.
to do something.
Yes.
Right? The motion is if you're talking about the motion itself, but we move to forward the, you know. forward the
Okay.
motion.
Yeah, I move to forward the agreement regarding the truck.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So the next item has to do with the adding parking spots to Plattekill Avenue. So we have had this conversation before. I think we just need a plan to figure out, where spots can fit, and this is all an opportunity because the street out in front of Plattekill Avenue is being used differently now that our fire station has relocated.
How many spots are there?
It probably would requiring some measuring, it's a fairly low tech pursuit.
Yeah, I estimate about 12.
12 spots on
Just-
both
Just
sides.
in the firefighter reserve area, about 12, depending on.
So is that something that we would want striped and then
Well,
parking department enforcement?
I think,
You'd have to write a new law.
right, we talked a little bit about it. I thought maybe meter spots along that stretch. We also talked about handicap parking, and Michelle did quite a bit of research the last time we discussed this on availability, lack of availability and availability of handicap parking in the village. So I thought maybe what we might consider is taking maybe a couple spots around in the central area of the downtown business district and making some of those handicap and moving people this way with meter parking.
I'm gonna add to that. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things we tried to do, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, was to put a handicap spot on the north side of Main Street. And it was problematic because of the loading zone there in front of P&G's and Manny's. But there's no handicap parking on the north side of Main Street. And I don't know if that's even doable because the spot closer to Liquid is also problematic because of the sloping. So that's just one thing to consider when we were talking about it, adding more spots. That was a spot we were looking at. But if we were to put more in the thick of it zone area, and then like Bill said, open up Plattekill for a metered parking, that would be excellent, to at least add potentially maybe 2 or 3 handicap spots for what we deem necessary.
So this doesn't address your comment about a spot a handicap spot on the northern side of Main Street, but I think an interesting location could be right in front of Ariel Dental, because there's no parking there at all. What about the possibility of just having 1 or 2 handicap spots there? Because that would probably be a relatively easier location to access. Because we have the two handicap spots on the other side of the street at Chase. And, just adding spots there would be good, as opposed to the people who use that as like a standing zone to run in and get coffee, even though all the signs say absolutely no standing.
Yeah, hopefully people won't do that in the handicap. But one of the things when we were talking about, this is going back a couple of years, is reimagining Plattekill, is putting a bike parking area in front of Starbucks there, which would be a fun thing to have, perhaps handicap parking and a bike parking zone, to really bump it out so it discourages those people who just idle there to run in to pick up their Starbucks, able-bodied folks. And yeah, so I like that idea.
I'm wondering if part of the reasoning also is that we'd want to have something on the north side so they don't have to cross.
Yeah, we talked to Blue about it too, and I'll have to remember the exact conversations. It's just a problematic thing unless we put a handicap in the center of Main Street, which then is typically, typically handicap spots are on the end. Though I would not be opposed to in the center of the block. But it's also, it's challenging for a few reasons too, because if the handicapped person is the driver and then they're getting out.
I just thought of that and right before you said it, yeah.
So it's problematic, but I do like it to be on in front of Ariel, because it's then just one crosswalk to navigate opposed to two from the other side. I don't know.
That makes perfect sense. Thank you.
But I would love
I
to
like,
get
go ahead.
feedback from folks who would utilize these spots too. That would be probably extremely helpful to
That would be ideal, yes.
get some insight there to make the best decisions.
Yeah, I think looking at Plattekill, in addition to where the volunteer firefighters park, I think looking at the western side of Plattekill also makes sense, because there's definitely space to add parking. And I'm definitely a proponent of effectively narrowing the street by adding parking on both sides, because it's kind of a fast street that probably would benefit from some narrowing that the parking spots would help with.
Agreed, yeah.
But we really need someone to pencil this out. I mean, I wonder whether this can be like back of the envelope by board members and then looked at by engineers, or how do we want to proceed?
I can draw something in terms of spacing.
How about you and Michelle, work on this and at least get us a draft for adding handicap spots closer to Ariel. I mean, we do have that bike rack near the parking kiosk as you enter the Plattekill Avenue lot. So there is I mean, that could be improved.
Michelle, is there handicap parking down on Front and Church down in that area?
Yeah, there is.
A little bit, yeah, on front, I know.
It's in our local code, all
Yes.
like 20 odd handicap spots are listed. All handicap spots have to be listed by law,
There's one in front of Huckleberry.
Right.
but there's also spots on North Front,
And correct, yes,
both sides of the street.
yes,
Further down Church Street.
yeah.
Yeah.
Towards Henry W.
There's an
Oh,
odd
okay.
one before Mulder, or before Broadhead.
Go
But there's also,
ahead, sorry.
no, I mean, there's also one closer to North Chestnut on North Front Street. But the full list is in our code. But probably looking at that list and mapping it out and seeing like where there might be other locations where we could add them, kind of using the idea that you guys came up with, like maybe removing some meters that could be used up on Plattekill in exchange for handicap spots in other locations.
Yeah,
So-
I had done a little bit of that prior, when, before this discussion about the firehouse spots. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think I identified at least 8 spots. And that was just me crudely walking and trying to just do steps by myself to figure out. So we can work off of that document and recheck that work and see what other spots with the firehouse leaving and adding those spots in. So,
You're saying you identified 8 spots where we could add handicap based on where you feel like we're missing them?
no, 8 spots where we could add just metered parking.
On Plattekill.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think
All right,
it
well,
would be, don't hold me to it.
And that was before the availability.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Is that right, Michelle? You're saying that could have been done before we had all these other spaces made available with the fire station being relocated.
correct.
Right. Okay, so you and Bill will work on a draft
So if she spotted 8 and I'm guessing 10 to 12, it's potentially a 20 spot increase in the village.
Yeah.
How much
Sounds
is a
great.
meter?
What?
How much do meters cost?
A new meter is like $500. We recently bought a bunch of refurbished meters. I think those are working out well. I think we bought about 100 refurbished meters, which is less than a third of all of our meters. Okay, so you'll circle back with us on a plan. So the next item is this, this statewide law. I'm gonna make a motion and then we can discuss it. I motion that we schedule a public hearing for this law on 12/21/22.
Second.
Okay, discussion. So Autumn took some time and looked at our code because we were trying to understand, well, like, how is this law different from what we already have on the books? And it was great because we took the work that Autumn did and asked our village attorney to help us understand. And the way he explained it is, this is basically an umbrella that would allow our building department to cite the Uniform Building Code, the statewide, very large list of statewide codes. So our local laws address many things, but not everything. So if there's ever a situation where a property is in violation and it's not addressed in our local laws, this will provide a broader umbrella. So once our attorney explained it to us, then we're like, oh, okay, now we understand why we're doing this in addition to what we already have on our book. So that was pretty straightforward. So all in favor of having that, opening that public hearing? Aye.
Aye.
Next item, I motion we move bills and claims.
Second.
Aye.
Yeah.
And we had a long planning board meeting last night.
I was unable to attend.
Okay,
So
no problem. Any zoning board of appeals update?
We didn't have another meeting since our last meeting.
Right. And we mentioned that those public hearings are on December 13th for a couple of projects.
I have one thing about the planning board meeting.
Yeah.
that would be helpful. The topic of the week about the possible trees being removed from 11 Water Street came up, and the developers presented an inventory of trees on site and what they intend to do with the forest and the trees in the area have been marked.
Okay, so in case that wasn't picked up by the mic, Autumn is our scribe for planning board meetings, so she's sharing that the discussion that occurred on social media where people witnessed trees being identified or ribbons putting around them was not because the plan is to take them down, but it's really just to do a broad inventory of all the trees on the property. And when we met with the developer on November 9th, they explained to us that their plan is to protect as many trees as possible. And I feel like that makes a great deal of sense. If anyone has ever seen what this developer constructed up in Woodstock, it's a very tree oriented development. I imagine they're looking to do the same thing with their 28-room hotel that they're proposing for the former box factory at Water Street.
Yeah, and I'll add to that too.
Go ahead, sorry.
There are plans for new plantings as well. It's an extensive list of shrubs and trees and lots of greenery. So they once everything is finalized, everything is in the talks right now, but there will be new plantings should they have to remove any trees that are dead or diseased.
And they're working with you guys on the Shade Tree Commission, so.
They did consult with them, which is great, because from what little interactions I've had, they seem to be very welcoming to our committees and hearing their advice and their thoughts on things. So they did do that. They followed up with the Shade Tree Commission, and 2 members did meet with them and review their plans and their plans for new plantings as well.
Michelle, isn't that kind of above and beyond for the Shade Tree Commission? Because generally the purview of the Shade Tree Commission is just related to whether or not a property owner can take down a tree that's within 20 feet of the road.
Yes, and
So. Mhm.
I mean, I cannot sing the praises of the Shade Tree Commission enough, because, I've personally witnessed them, like Christine, who was the chair for quite a bit. We've gone out when people were out there with chainsaws chopping down a tree and that we felt what shouldn't be. And Christine is not afraid to just go up to a person with a chainsaw in their hand. And so they always go above and beyond, and I'm so thankful for them. And they really just have, a lot of passion to protect the trees in our community, and, that for environmental reasons, as well as, flooding and all the other types of reasons that are so important for our community. So a big thank you to them.
But it almost seems to function as like valuable free consulting from folks who have some expertise regarding the value of trees. So it's kind of like the way our design review board has worked. Like, we don't actually have law that requires projects to go and talk to our Shade Tree Commission when their project may involve adding trees or how to manage existing trees. And this is not the first time where we have, just like you did on November 9th, you recommended that they go and brainstorm with the Shade Tree Commission. So again, it's like volunteers who are offering their time and expertise, even though it's not, binding and connected to a local law. It's more about like kind of a community oriented approach with people who want to share ideas.
Yep, very thankful.
Just a point, I was in a town in Massachusetts and I passed through a town and I saw a sign posted that tree survey was being taken. I'm just wondering, given the sensitivity
Right.
to removing trees in the village, that maybe planning board could
That's
be
a great idea.
informed, and that developer posts notice tree survey Y signed by somebody.
I love that
that,
idea, yeah.
Because otherwise we get this
Hysteria.
feedback, if you will, from the community that's not necessarily possible.
Right,
Just a suggestion that I've seen.
I like that.
I'm not sure how.
It's kind of similar to when our planning board asks a developer to do a traffic study, and then the traffic study comes in and puts up these cameras on local street signs, and we're not aware, because we've actually been in situations like this before where we're getting calls from people who are like, what is that camera on that street sign? And, we're not aware, the police department's not aware, and no one actually knows. But that happened not too long ago, where a project had a third-party consultant doing work. And yeah, I mean, 9 times out of 10, most of the stuff that we deal with can be improved upon just with better efforts to communicate. And this is probably just one of those examples. All right, I don't think we have anything else. Michelle, Bill, Stana. Okay, I'm gonna motion that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.